This is Good Morning Mumbai, and you're with Hrishi K.
Radio 1.
I'm with Shobha Day this morning. Good morning. What a pleasant surprise. How are you?
Thank you, Hrishi K. Good to be here. Honored to be here.
Listen, I've got to say this. I mean, I've admired you for just the longest time. You know, you say it as it is. You know, you're sassy. You're a grandmom and looking as vibrant and beautiful as ever.
Thank you. More.
But really, a model who went on to be a writer, how did that end up happening?
Hrishi K, do I need to tell you that's sounding very politically incorrect?
It does, but I'm just curious to know because the first
Are you
beginning
saying
of your
models
career,
are dumb, models
No,
can't
not at
sing,
all.
models can't write? Watch.
less people come protesting at our
Yes,
doorstep.
exactly.
Yeah.
We've been dealing with misogynists for the last few weeks. We don't want to get there. We don't want to invite that again. But seriously speaking, a model's life necessarily has a shelf life. And every single model knows that when she gets into the profession. I was 17 when I was spotted and asked to do a ramp show. And for the next 3 or 4 years, I really enjoyed myself. But I also knew there was life after modeling. I knew it from the day I set foot on that ramp. So I was always planning for plan B, and my plan B was writing. I knew from the age of 13 or 14 that that's really what I wanted to do. Didn't know that the vocation would happen to me in quite the way that it has, but it was my passion, and it's fabulous when you can actually convert your passion into a vocation, which is what I did.
I know it's a long time ago, but you studied psychology at Xavier's.
Yes, I did.
Those must have been wonderful days. Were
They
the woods
were.
like they were? I mean, they don't exist now, but were they?
It was incredible. I had a fantastic professor. In particular, I must pay my homage and tribute to Nisha de Cunha, who was an iconic English language teacher, English literature professor. I owe her really a big one because I've always had my love affair going with words and with literature, but she made it come alive in a way that was so fantastic. And I figured that with that kind of background, I didn't need to get my degree in literature. It would always be with me, but I needed to get a degree in psychology because on my own, I wouldn't be reading books on psychology and studying abnormal psychology and so on, which I did. And I owe another big one, not just to St. Xavier's, to the professors I had there, particularly there were so many wonderful Spanish priests, and I madly fell in love with all of them. But our Emile de Cruz, who was our iconic principal, we all looked up to him. I owe him a big one.
It's been such an eventful career. What I love about you in particular and Mr. Bachchan is that you've taken on to the Twitterverse and the Facebook world, social networking in particular, so beautifully. Is there pressure sometimes that there's one more thing to do? I've got to write my blog, finish it. I've got to put out the tweet.
I love pressure. I function best under chaos, and I
Sorry
like
to
my
interrupt. What
deadlines.
is your zodiac sign, ma'am?
I'm a Capricornian.
Okay.
So we're driven. And I'm very alpha, and I'm very, it is an alpha personality. I like my chaos, and I function best with deadlines. So if there's no deadline, I kind of wonder what am I going to do with my time. But that has not happened for 40 years. So when I reach that day when I have to say, what do I do with my time? That will be the day to worry. Every day of my life is crammed. I use my time well, I think. I like to believe I'm on top of it. I like to believe I am a professional every bit of the way. I like to say to my editors that I will never let them down. I like to say to my readers, I'll never skip my deadline. I haven't in over 40 years.
You've come back to fiction after almost a decade and a half with
That's right.
Sethji.
That's right. But there were many books in between.
Yeah, there were. But those are non-fiction.
Yeah.
Did the right story not come to you, or was it just boiling? You know, sometimes you have an idea, you just leave it there and you revisit it.
No, the ideas were always there for fiction, but I think of fiction as something as a bit of a luxury and an indulgence. I think each one of us, we're all natural born storytellers. We all have a book in us, either our own lives or the lives of people around us. We are all fiction writers. We're all storytellers. So fiction for me continues to be very liberating. Non-fiction was very important. It was an extension of journalism in a way. It was building on my columns, building on social opinion, building on what I was looking at around me, commenting on life during a very dramatic decade in India's social history when there was cataclysmic change happening all around us in every which way, politically and in the social sphere. It was important for me to document that as it was happening, not 10 years later.
I'm just saying that you're well versed with the Mumbai spectrum of life, and to bring politics into a book.
Yes.
And was that difficult to do, or have you met many in your time?
Not at all. Wasn't difficult at all, because at the end of the day, especially in today's times and with an election coming up right around the corner, not a single one of us can afford to be detached or disengaged from the politics we see around us. And all those of us who have a voice should be able to use that voice. We are still, as far as I know, when I last checked, a functioning democracy.
It's so wonderful to see your extended large family. They talk about Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt's family. Look at yours. So beautiful.
It is.
Do you get to do the together family dinner often? Does it happen very often?
All the time and compulsively. I mean, just to tell you about last night's dinner, which went on till 4 a.m. It was a daughter's birthday, and it's just beautiful. And in our home, our birthdays, we really celebrate, I think, birthday weeks rather than birthdays. It's almost like a royal celebration that goes on and on and on. It starts with pre-birthday, then it's a family outing the previous night, then it goes on to the party for friends, and it goes on to, so all of that. So to me, they really are my richness. They are my inspiration. They are my everything in life. Every decision I take is based around what the family will think about it, and most importantly, how it will impact family life.
Did you get inked very early, ma'am? You have some Chinese tattoo on your shoulder.
Well, that was actually like a challenge round which my daughters posed to me, and I love challenge rounds, as we have discovered, I'm sure, in the last few weeks. So when they said they're all the three daughters are inked, one isn't, and they know that I'm needle phobic and my pain threshold is indeed very low. So it was like reasserting not just my image in their eyes and saying that I'm not such a weakling. I'll go get it done because they wanted me to. So I did it for them, and it's a commitment, lifelong commitment to them and to family.
What does it say in Chinese?
It says the symbol on top, it's in kanji. It stands for motherhood. The literal translation would be in the shadow of the mother. So it's also for my own mother as a tribute to her, because that's what it means. So I'm glad to still be in her shadow, though she is no more, and it's for my children as their mother. And the one below is the feminine, positive female energy in the world, the feminine principle.
You're doing a series for us called Live the Luxurious Lifestyle. Just give all our listeners an insight into what they can expect over the next couple of weeks.
Well, they can expect to hear some, I would think, fairly authoritative comments on luxury and on brands. Not brands that I necessarily own, but certainly brands I'm familiar with, and brands that world leaders in their own spheres. There'll be chat on luxury too, and how you can live it and how you can love it, and how luxury doesn't have to necessarily translate into brands. It's really about, to me, luxury is freedom and it's time.
You're always so chic and fashionably dressed, and you're with the times. Do the daughters have a lot to do with that? Do you share a lot of fashion tips with them?
Hrishi K, I'm going to take this quote to them and hit them over the head with it. I mean, look at the way I'm dressed today, for example. If you're calling me chic and fashionably dressed, I'm very flattered. This is how I've always dressed from my college days onwards. I don't think it comes up to my daughter's expectations of chic or fashionable, and they're always mocking me, but that's all right. I think I've always been comfortable in my own skin and worn things that I think are appropriate, age appropriate, and personality appropriate. So thank you for the compliment. I'm going to go back and I'm going to taunt them with it.
In terms of music, what have been your musical influences over the passage of time? What is on Shobha Day's iPod?
Oh, my iPod has a mix which is eccentric, almost the way I am. But my greatest, I would say, the man that I have worshipped for over 45 years is Elvis Presley. I love him. I often say I am Elvis. Our birthdays are just one day apart. So every song that he has ever sung is in my DNA, and I can do a fairly good version of most of the songs, especially Love Me Tender. But don't ask me to sing tonight and right now. I'll play Diva and say, oh, I need my backup.
That is actually going to be my next question, and you stole it away from me. Writing literature all of a sudden is very sexy. I mean, everybody wants to be a writer. There's books flying off the shelf and things like that. Indian writers, who have you enjoyed reading?
Oh, it's two who I think are the most important writers coming out of India. and writers that will outlive us all and who deserve to be acknowledged far more than they have been so far. Vikram Seth is, of course, been given the Booker and so on. I think he deserves something much more and much beyond that. And the other person who deserves to, according to me, the Nobel is R.K. Narayan. Again, underrated, but he created a world in Malgudi which is so unique, and the writer in him created characters so completely Indian in their ethos, in their thinking, and every child, every young adult, every adult at whichever age, if you read him, you can understand India that much better. So what R.K. Narayan was to his generation in his time, Vikram Seth was certainly to mine and to the next generation, and I'm still waiting for the next great writer to emerge, and I'm sure such a person is right there, will crawl out of the woodwork soon, because there is an explosion of good writing. It's different, it's vibrant, it's sometimes a little strident, but writers, young writers are saying things in a way that's quite remarkable, very bold, and which reflects our times, and that's what good writing is all about. And they're speaking their own language. They're not writing like Jane Austen. They're not writing like some distant, dead English writer. They're writing like Desi writers who speak and think in English and are comfortable to express themselves in their own language.
Yeah, in the very chair that you're sitting, I've had so many smart writers, Chetan and Amish and Ashwin Sanghi. You're right, they're incredibly smart, and they're not pretending to be something else, which I think is the key, the trick
and
here.
They're also management graduates, so they're combining good business sense with publishing and writing, and using their talents, maximizing their talents in a way that I think is absolutely fabulous.
Internationally, would you enjoy reading contemporary writing?
Well, a lot of writers internationally, but I think young British writers. I've just started J.K. Rowling's new book, which is written under a pseudonym.
Non-Harry Potter.
Yes, non-Harry Potter as a Galbraith, and I think she is one of the biggest, not just commercial voices to have emerged, but she was a game changer on many levels, and she created a world which enchanted millions of children and their parents around the world, more than possibly any other writer, living or dead. So she's an important person, no matter how you regard her world of Potter. And with her book today, she's also proved that she can go beyond Potter, that there is a life for her as a writer beyond Potter.
In terms of journalism, there was on Twitter, you had on your timeline put up a picture of a Veer Sanghvi article.
Yes.
Who are the writers that you enjoy in contemporary journalism in India? Whose column would you just go straight to and say, I want to read what he's saying today or she's saying today?
Well, right now there are so many of them and saying things so wonderfully well, and also because of how writers today are using their own blogs to say things that they may not necessarily say in their newspapers, because as we all know, we can't always say everything that we want to say in a newspaper because of various complicated reasons, commercial and political. Blogs are the perfect way for self-expression, and there are a lot of very smart bloggers out there. But for me, I am partial to perhaps columnists from my own generation in a way. Because their writing style is so compelling, and Veer is consistently readable. I like Siddharth Bhatia for what he stands for, and he's also an independent writer. Anil Dharkar writes very, very wittily. I just find Anil a little lazy. He should be writing much more than he does. And there was
Have you told him that?
I've always told him that. I mean, he's. I just want to prod him into writing much more. Manu Joseph is in a league of his own. So, and I also greatly enjoy reading Rajiv Masand, because he writes really tart and sharp column on Bollywood, and most other writers on Bollywood are just reproducing PR handouts or writing sort of fairly, not even writing well, and writing gossip in a way which is gossip without any style or wit. I think Rajiv combines both very well.
Do you enjoy your blog for that very reason, that there are things in that you can say there which you don't say in newspapers? Yeah.
But blogging, you start blogging, you don't even know who the blog is going out to very often, and eventually and very slowly a community forms, and you start establishing bonds with those. I call them my blog dos, and their comments matter a lot to me. I don't otherwise read. I don't read anything that anyone posts about me on Twitter, for example, not even on my own posts. I don't bother with trolls. So similarly on my blog, it's a very democratic space. I value it for that, and I post all the comments, the nastiest ones. The abusive ones, of course, get filtered out automatically, but the nastiest, the harshest of criticism, I I let it go because that's what the blog is about. It's not about posting things which flatter you and put you on a pedestal and say, oh, wow, you're fantastic. It's about people saying, I challenge you. You've said this in your column or you've expressed an opinion. I do not agree. And this is why I do not agree. And very often I learn so much from people who are posting comments. Things I may not know about, or they're giving me a cross-reference, or they're referring to some historical fact that I may have got wrong. And it's a learning process that never ends. It's fabulous. I love my blog. I'm very possessive about it. And I will not let go 1 centimeter of that freedom.
Editors still do that now and then. Shobha Day, what have you written? Maybe
Never.
you can tweet it around. Tweak it
Never.
around. So
Never.
you're still
With
able to
me,
say whatever you want on
I've been extremely fortunate with every single editor of mine. In this 40 years that I've been a columnist, I think only 2 of my columns have actually been, I was told in a very gentle and sweet way that it's a bit difficult for them to carry because it was perhaps uncomfortable for the owners and their personal equations with the powers that be in Delhi. But don't ask me which publication asked me to drop them. So and that's very interesting because both were about one individual. And in 45 years or 40 years that I've been writing, 2 columns where the editors have asked me to either swap columns and write a fresh one. And they certainly did tell me that they'd be forced to drop it because it would cause problems for them.
Apart from grace and beauty and being well-spoken, one thing I always will remember you being is fearless. You think that is the secret to Shobha Day's longevity? I mean, you're just fearless. I asked you this question off the mic. I said, does it still frazzle you, all these
Yes.
protests and things like that? Is fearlessness what keeps you going?
I've always believed this, and I've said it to the wonderful Mumbai cops who really extended enormous support during the crisis, that truth is your best shield. And if you have spoken the truth and you have nothing else, no skeletons rattling about in your cupboard, what should you be afraid of? The only people in the world who are afraid of repercussions are those who have something to hide. My life has been lived transparently. There's nothing that I'm ashamed of. There's nothing I feel I should apologize for. There's nothing I want to defend in that sense. And the only people whose opinion truly counts to me in my life who I'd hate to hurt, number 1, my family, and number 2, my readers. I would hate to give them offense or do anything that would make me less in the eyes of my readers. As long as I'm protected by both these, yes, I would say I'm not Joan of Arc and I don't want to be burnt at the stake, but I really don't see any reason for me to be afraid of anybody.
But I'm sure you know, I fear sometimes for my wife and daughter because, you know, I need them to feel I'm safe, and you must worry for them too.
Exactly. I worry for the family.
Yeah.
But when they tell me that they are 110% behind me and proud of me, then I think we are all adults now and we have to look out for each other, but also we have to look after our own selves. And I know that they wouldn't do anything that would put them at risk.
Last couple of questions. Such a wonderful relationship with you and your husband. What's the thing you most love about him? What's the thing that slightly irritates you? All relationships go through that.
Of course we do. I would say, thank God, our relationship is not like a placid lake, or he'd have been bored out of his skull and so would I. So we were joking at the time of during this crisis when he was like more than a rock. He was just fantastic. And I was trying to thank him and he said, don't be ridiculous. I mean, that's what marriage is about. And I would expect the same from you. So you don't have to thank me. But he said, as a joke, he said, when I married you, I knew that it would be an exciting life. I didn't exactly expect how exciting and it would get. Now I know. There's never a dull day in our lives. That much I can tell you. With a pun on day.
I'm sure. What is the last wonderful holiday you took and where did you go?
Well, we were away in Italy. That was 10 days ago because my husband was on his Michelangelo mission. He's an art collector and an art lover, as you know, and Michelangelo is an artist he has worshipped for decades. So this was a very special interest tour where he had actually managed to locate wonderful guides who were historians and archaeologists who accompanied us on a Michelangelo tour in Florence and in Rome. So it was the Sistine Chapel, it was the Vatican, of course, in Rome, and in Florence it was the Michelangelo Museum, it was the Uffizi, and that was what we did. We ate very well, we drank wonderful Italian wine, but our days, and they were very hot days, there was a heat wave in Italy, were consumed, and I'm still reeling at what was possible then. I don't think anybody has matched Michelangelo's genius. I doubt anyone can.
Thank you so much for your time. It is such a wonderful experience hanging with you in studio.
Thank you very much for inviting me.